One colony fell. Then humanity sent 700,000 battleships for vengeance. 6 months after the destruction of New Eden, Earth had changed. Factories that once made cars now built ship parts. Schools trained soldiers instead of teachers. Every resource went toward one goal: revenge. General William Carter walked through the largest shipyard in Earth orbit. Workers floated around massive metal frames that would become warships. Sparks flew as welders joined steel plates. Machines hummed as they shaped parts for engines. "How many ships are under construction right now?" William asked the woman beside him. Chief Engineer Donna White checked her tablet. 10,000 in this yard alone. Similar numbers at Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn shipyards. William nodded. 10,000 ships was more than humans had ever built before. But it was not enough. Not nearly enough. "Speed it up," he said. "President Bennett wants 700,000 ships. At this rate, it will take 50 years. Donna frowned. "We're working at maximum capacity, sir." "Then build more shipyards, train more workers, use robots, do whatever it takes." William looked out at the half-built ships. He remembered the images from New Eden, the burned planet, the dead colony, the strange alien symbol carved into the ground. "They hit us once," he said quietly. "They will hit again. We need to be ready." In a lab deep under the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Karen Phillips stared at the screen. Her team had been studying the energy readings from New Eden for months. The weapons they used were nothing like ours, she told the military officers seated around the table. They didn't just bomb the planet. They changed the very nature of matter in some areas. She showed them images of strange, twisted landscapes where the laws of physics seemed broken. "Can we build weapons like that?" asked Admiral Scott Young. "Not yet," Karen said. "But we've made progress. We've developed new shield technology based on their energy patterns. And we have some ideas for weapons." She touched her screen, and a design appeared. "This is the Nova Cannon. It uses antimatter to create a directed energy beam. One shot could destroy a small moon." The officers stared at the design. "How soon can you build it?" Scott asked. "The prototype is already under construction. We'll test it next month." "Good," Scott said. "We'll need thousands." Joe Collins wiped sweat from his forehead. 12 hours into his shift at the Detroit shipyards, and he was tired. But he kept working. Everyone did. Before the attack, Joe had built cars. Now he built ship components. His hands were calloused from handling metal all day. His back ached from standing. "Taking a break, Joe?" asked his supervisor, Fred Miller. Joe shook his head. "Not yet. Want to finish this engine housing first." Fred nodded and moved on. Everyone knew why Joe worked so hard. His daughter Lily had been a teacher on New Eden. Her picture was pinned to his workstation. Joe looked at her smiling face. "We'll make them pay, sweetheart," he whispered, and went back to work. Commander Rick Evans sat in a dark room, surrounded by screens. His team of intelligence analysts worked day and night, trying to find the enemy. "We've detected energy signatures similar to those at New Eden," said analyst Amy Porter. "Here, in the Ross 128 system." Rick studied the data. Ross 128 was just 12 light years from Earth, too close for comfort. "Are they building something there?" he asked. "Looks like it. The energy output has been increasing for weeks." Rick turned to his communications officer. "Alert Fleet Command. We need ships there now." "Sir, we only have 30 battle-ready ships at this point," the officer reminded him. "Then send them all," Rick said. "If the enemy is establishing a base that close to Earth, we need to know." Admiral Kelly Martinez stood on the bridge of the USS Retribution, the first true warship built after the New Eden attack. It was larger than any ship humans had ever made before, bristling with weapons and protected by experimental shields. "Status report," she ordered as the ship approached Ross 128. "All systems operational," replied her second-in-command, Captain Ben Ward. "The other 29 ships are in formation behind us." Kelly nodded. This was humanity's first real military action against the unknown enemy. They had named them The Scourge, because of what they had done to New Eden, dropping out of FTL in 321. The stars shifted as the ship returned to normal space. Ahead of them was a red dwarf star with several planets. "Scan the system," Kelly ordered. "Multiple contacts detected around the fourth planet," Ben reported. "Structures on the surface, too." Kelly studied the screen. This wasn't just a small outpost. It was a major operation. "Any sign they've detected us?" "No, Admiral. Their sensors seem focused on the planet." Kelly considered her options. They were outnumbered, but they had surprise on their side, and she had orders to gather intelligence. "Send a stealth probe to the planet. I want to know what they're doing there before we engage." Hours later, the probe's data came back. Ben's face went pale as he studied it. "Admiral, you need to see this." The screen showed images of the planet's surface. Massive machines were stripping it bare, pulling resources from the ground, and working the machines were humans, prisoners, Kelly asked, her voice tight. "I don't think so," Ben said. "Look at their behavior, the way they're organized. They're not acting like prisoners." Kelly looked closer. The humans worked with mechanical precision. They didn't talk to each other. They didn't rest. And their eyes, they're being controlled somehow, she said. "Mind control or some kind of technology we don't understand." "There's more," Ben said. "The probe detected transmissions going to a location 2, systems away. Whatever is controlling these humans isn't here." Kelly's hands tightened on the rail. "So we're dealing with an enemy that not only destroys our colonies but turns our people into slaves." She turned to her communications officer. "Send all this data back to Earth, then set course for that transmission destination. We need to know who we're fighting." As the small fleet moved away from Ross 128, Kelly looked at the images of the enslaved humans one more time. "We'll be back," she promised, "with enough ships to free you all." Back on Earth, President Laura Bennett reviewed the report from Kelly's fleet. "So now we know," she told the assembled military leaders. "This isn't just about defending ourselves. It's about saving those who have been taken." She stood up, her face determined. "Double the shipbuilding program. I want those 700,000 ships ready in 5 years, not 7. Whatever it takes." No one argued. They had all seen the images from Ross 128. The war had just gotten bigger, and time was running out. One colony fell. Then humanity sent 700,000 battleships for vengeance. The year was 2247. Humans had spread across the stars, building homes on distant planets. New Eden was the newest and farthest colony. It sat at the edge of known space, AE, bright jewel among the stars. Over 300,000 people lived there, building a new world with their bare hands. Governor Alan Wright stood at the window of his office, looking out at the growing city below. The morning sun shone on tall buildings and green parks. Ships flew between towers carrying people and goods. Farms spread out beyond the city limits, growing food for the colony. Another beautiful day on New Eden, Alan said to himself. He had helped build this colony from nothing. Now it was home to hundreds of thousands of people. He felt proud every time he looked at what they had made together. The comm unit on his desk beeped. "Governor, we have a strange reading on our long-range scanners," said the voice of Sam Lewis, head of colony security. Alan frowned and walked to his desk. "What kind of reading?" "Unknown ships, sir. Moving fast toward our system. They don't match any known human designs." Alan's heart beat faster. First contact? After all these years of reaching out to the stars, had they finally found other intelligent life? Or was it something else? "How long until they reach us?" he asked. 3 hours at their current speed. "Alert Earth Space Command. Put the colony on yellow alert. Don't cause panic, but get our defense systems ready just in case." "Yes, sir." Alan stared out the window again. The people below had no idea their lives might change forever in just a few hours. On Earth, Lieutenant Susan Miller sat at her monitoring station in Space Command headquarters. Her job was to watch communications from all 12 human colonies, spread across 7 star systems. Usually it was boring work. Today was different. "Sir, I've lost contact with New Eden," she said, turning to her commander. Commander Jack Hall looked up from his desk. "Equipment failure?" "I don't think so. We were receiving a message about unknown ships approaching their system, then nothing. All channels are dead." Jack stood up and walked to her station. "Try emergency frequencies." Susan's fingers moved quickly over her console. No response on any channel. Just then, her screen lit up with red alerts. "Sir, automated distress beacons from New Eden have activated." The message scrolled across her screen. "Under attack. Unknown hostiles. Planetary bombardment in progress. Requesting immediate." The message cut off. The beacons went silent. The command center fell quiet. Everyone stared at Susan's screen. "Get me the Admiral," Jack said softly. "Now." 3 weeks later, Captain Paul Harris stood on the bridge of the USS Vigilant as it dropped out of faster-than-light. Travel near New Eden. His ship was the fastest in the fleet sent ahead to find out what had happened to the lost colony. "Sensors online," said First Officer Mary Jones. "Scanning the system." Paul waited, his face grim. The Vigilant was a scout ship, not a warship. If whoever attacked New Eden was still here, they would have to run. "Captain," Mary said, her voice breaking. "You need to see this." The main screen showed the planet where New Eden had stood. Paul's legs felt weak. He grabbed the back of a chair to steady himself. The planet's surface was black and burning. Huge craters covered the land where cities had been. The blue oceans had turned gray with ash. The atmosphere itself was partly gone, stripped away by weapons Paul couldn't even imagine. "Life signs?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. Mary shook her head. "None, sir. The colony is gone." Paul stared at the screen. 300,000 people. Men, women, children. All gone. "There's something else, sir," said the sensor officer, Bill Green. A symbol or pattern burned into the surface, visible from orbit. The screen zoomed in on a massive shape carved into what was once the main continent. It looked like nothing Paul had ever seen before, strange angles and curves that hurt his eyes to look at. "Record everything," Paul ordered. "Then set course. For Earth, maximum speed. They need to know what happened here." As the Vigilant turned away from the dead world, Paul Harris made a silent promise to the people of New Eden. Whatever did this would pay. Humanity would make sure of it. President Laura Bennett stood behind her desk in the Oval Office. The leaders of Earth's nations and colonies filled the room, their faces showing shock and grief. "The attack on New Eden was unprovoked," she said. "We had no prior contact with this species. They gave no warning, made no demands. They simply appeared and destroyed an entire colony." She touched a button, and the alien symbol from New Eden appeared as a hologram in the center of the room. "Our scientists are working to understand what this means. It may be a warning, a signature, or something we cannot yet comprehend. What we do know is this: an enemy exists in our galaxy that is willing and able to wipe out human settlements without hesitation." Laura looked at each person in the room. "As of this moment, the United Earth Government declares a state of interstellar war. I am authorizing the largest military buildup in human history." General William Carter stepped forward. "Madam President, our current fleet is small, designed for exploration and defense against pirates. We're not prepared for war against a technologically advanced enemy." "Then we get prepared, General," Laura said firmly. "How long would it take to build a real war fleet?" William thought for a moment. 5 years minimum. 10 to build something truly formidable." "You have 7, Laura said. "And I don't want formidable. I want overwhelming. I want a fleet so massive that no species would ever dare attack humans again." "How massive are we talking about, Madam President?" asked Defense Secretary Jane Douglas. Laura's eyes were hard as steel. "1 ship for every person we lost on New Eden. 700,000 warships. That's what these attackers have earned with their actions." The room fell silent as everyone considered the scale of what she proposed. "It will require the resources of every nation and colony," William said finally. A complete change to our economy. Then that's what we'll do, Laura said. History has shown that humans are at their best when facing extinction. We survived climate disaster. We survived wars and plagues. We reached the stars. And now we will show this enemy that taking one human colony was the worst mistake they could have made. She stood straighter, her voice ringing with determination. They came to New Eden and found a peaceful colony. When we find them, we will bring the combined might of every surviving human, and they will learn what happens when humanity seeks vengeance. One colony fell. Then humanity sent 700,000 battleships for vengeance. 3 years passed. All across the solar system, shipyards glowed with activity day and night. Humanity built warships at a pace never seen before in history. Admiral Kelly Martinez stood in the observation deck of Earth Station 1. Below her, thousands of completed warships floated in neat rows. Each one was a marvel of engineering, packed with weapons that didn't exist 3 years ago. How many are ready? She asked Captain Ben Ward, who stood beside her. 50,000, Ben replied, with 2,000 more finishing each month. Kelly nodded. It wasn't the full 700,000 that President Bennett had ordered, but it was enough to start. The enemy hasn't attacked again, Ben said. Maybe they're afraid of what we might do. Or maybe they're building their own fleet, Kelly said. We can't wait until all our ships are ready. We need to strike now with what we have. Later that day, Kelly stood before the Earth Defense Council. The room was filled with military leaders and government officials. We have tracked the enemy to their home base, she told them. It's a star system 30 light-years from Earth. We call it Target Alpha. She showed them images taken by stealth probes, a solar system with multiple planets. On one, massive structures covered the surface. This is their main production facility, she continued. They're building ships there just like we are, but they don't have as many as we do. Not yet. She looked at each person in the room. I propose we take 50,000 ships and attack now. We can cripple their ability to build more ships before they become a bigger threat. President Bennett studied the images. What about the humans they've taken? The ones working as slaves? We have a plan for them too, Kelly said. Dr. Phillips has developed a device that should break whatever control they have over our people. The council voted. The decision was unanimous. You have your orders, Admiral, President Bennett said. Operation Retribution begins now. A month later, 50,000 human warships gathered at the edge of the solar system. It was the largest fleet ever assembled. Ships of all sizes formed a sphere 500 miles across. Kelly stood on the bridge of her flagship, now named the Vengeance. It was the biggest and most powerful ship in the fleet, nearly a mile long. All ships report ready, Admiral, said Communications Officer Lisa Young. Kelly took a deep breath. This was it, the moment humanity had been preparing for since New Eden fell. Send the order, she said. All ships jump to Target Alpha on my mark. 3, 2, 1 mark. Space bent around the fleet as 50,000 engines activated at once. The stars blurred, then changed. The jump took 20 minutes in faster-than-light travel. When the fleet arrived at Target Alpha, alarms immediately sounded. Multiple enemy contacts detected, called out Sensor Officer John Price. Hundreds of ships, maybe thousands. Kelly studied the tactical display. The enemy had ships, yes, but not nearly as many as humanity had brought. They didn't expect us to build so many ships so quickly, she said. They're scrambling to respond. The enemy vessels were strange-looking. They had no clear front or back, just orbs connected by glowing energy fields. They moved fast, forming a defensive line around their main planet. All ships battle formation Delta, Kelly ordered. Fighter squadrons launch. Target their command ships first. The human fleet spread out, surrounding the enemy. Smaller ships zoomed forward while larger ones hung back, their massive guns powering up. They're sending a transmission, Lisa reported. Put it on screen, Kelly said. The main screen lit up. For the first time, humanity saw what the enemy looked like. The creature had multiple eyes on a bulbous head. Its skin was pale blue. When it spoke, The computer translated. "You have violated hegemony space," it said. "Surrender now or be destroyed, like your pathetic colony." Kelly's face hardened. "You destroyed New Eden without warning. You enslaved our people. We're not here to surrender. We're here for justice." She cut the transmission and turned to her weapons officer. "Fire." The battle began. Human ships moved with precision, following tactics practiced for years. The enemy was more advanced, but humans had numbers and surprise on their side. Nova cannons fired, their antimatter beams cutting through enemy shields. Fighter squadrons darted between larger ships, launching missiles at weak points. The hegemony fought back. Strange energy weapons lashed out, destroying human ships, but for every human ship lost, 5 enemy vessels were destroyed. "They're retreating toward the planet," Ben reported after an hour of fighting. "Press the attack," Kelly ordered. "Don't let them regroup." The human fleet pursued, pushing ever closer to the planet. As they approached, they could see the massive structures on the surface, factories building ships, power plants feeding energy to weapons. "Admiral," John called out suddenly, "I'm detecting human life signs on the planet, thousands of them." Kelly frowned. "Where exactly?" "In the labor camps around the factories, just like at Ross 128. Kelly made a quick decision. "Deploy the liberation teams. Get our people out before we hit those factories." Special Forces ships broke from the main fleet, racing toward the planet's surface. They carried Dr. Phillips's device, a transmitter designed to break the hegemony's control over human minds. On the ground, Frank Rivera led the first team into a labor camp. The controlled humans worked like machines, ignoring the battle in the sky above. Frank activated the device. A pulse of energy spread outward. The humans stopped working. They blinked, looked around in confusion. "We're from Earth," Frank told them. "We've come to take you home." Back in space, the battle was turning decisively in humanity's favor. The enemy fleet was in disarray, their formations broken. Their main command ship is trying to escape. Ben reported. "Not today," Kelly said. "Target all weapons on that ship." The Vengeance's guns locked on. Energy built up, then released in a blinding beam. The hegemony command ship exploded, fragments scattering across space, as the last enemy ships were destroyed or captured. Kelly received word from the ground teams. "All human captives secured, Admiral. 5,000 rescued. They're being brought to the medical ships now." Kelly nodded. "Begin bombardment of the factory complexes. Leave nothing standing." The human fleet positioned itself around the planet. On Kelly's command, they fired. The factories that had built the hegemony's ships were reduced to molten slag. When it was over, Kelly addressed the fleet. "Today, we have struck the first blow for New Eden. But this is just the beginning. The hegemony spans dozens of star systems. We will hunt them down, free our people, and make them pay for what they did." She looked at the stars beyond target. Alpha. "And we still have 650,000 more ships coming." The hegemony thought they could destroy one human colony and face no consequences. They were wrong. Very wrong. One colony fell, then humanity sent 700,000 battleships for vengeance. 10 years had passed since New Eden fell. The war against the hegemony had spread across 50 star systems. Humanity now had the full 700,000 ships that President Bennett had ordered, and they were using them all. Captain Steve Russell stood on the bridge of the destroyer Victory. His ship was part of the Third Fleet, one of 20 massive fleets humanity had created. Each fleet had thousands of ships of all sizes. "Enemy ships approaching, Captain," said his first officer, Ellen Gray. 5 hegemony cruisers. Steve nodded. 5 cruisers used to be a major threat. Now they were just a nuisance. "Bring us around, Battle Formation 3, alert the rest of the squadron." The Victory turned smoothly, joined by 10 other human destroyers. They moved in perfect unison, surrounding the enemy ships. "They're trying to run," Ellen reported. "They always run now," Steve said. "They've learned to fear us." The human ships opened fire. Beams of energy cut through space. The hegemony cruisers fought back, but they were outmatched. Within minutes, 4 were destroyed. The fifth was disabled, floating dead in space. "Boarding teams ready?" Ellen said. Steve nodded. "Send them in. I want prisoners for questioning." Later, as his ship headed back to the fleet, Steve thought about how much had changed. He remembered when the news of New Eden's destruction first reached Earth. How scared everyone had been. How unsure they were about fighting an unknown enemy. Now, the hegemony was on the run. Their once mighty empire was falling apart system by system, and humanity was growing stronger every day. Back on Earth, Director Linda Watson walked through the Detroit shipyards. 10 years ago, when the war began, this place had been one of the first converted to build warships. Now it was twice as big and 10 times more efficient. "Production report," she said to the yard supervisor, Henry Mason. "On schedule, Director," Henry replied. 200 ships completed this month. We're starting the new heavy cruiser design next week." Linda nodded. Earth had 20 shipyards like this one. Mars had 15. Jupiter's moons had 30 more. Humanity had become a civilization built for war. "The president is visiting tomorrow," she told Henry. "She wants to see the 700,000th ship," Henry smiled. "It's almost ready. We're painting the name on the hull now." What name did they choose? New Eden's Revenge. In her laboratory on Titan, Dr. Amy Wong studied the strange device her team had captured from a hegemony ship. It was unlike any technology humans had seen before. "What do you think it is?" asked her colleague Daniel Brown. Amy pointed to the glowing center of the device. "I think it's how they control minds. The energy pattern matches what we found in the brains of the freed human slaves. For years, humans had been finding their own people used as slaves by the hegemony. Some had been taken from New Eden before it was destroyed. Others had been captured from ships or small outposts. All had been controlled through hegemony technology." "Can we reverse it?" Daniel asked. "Use it against them?" Amy shook her head. "Their brains are too different from ours, but we might be able to use it to free the other slave species." The hegemony, they had learned, didn't just enslave humans. Dozens of alien species had been conquered and forced to serve. Some had been slaves for thousands of years. "If we could turn their slave armies against them," Daniel said. Amy nodded. "It would end the war faster." She went back to work, carefully taking the device apart. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about freedom for all species under hegemony control. Colonel Greg Martinez led his Special Forces team through the dark corridors of the hegemony slave processing center. They moved silently, weapons ready. "Life signs ahead," whispered Sergeant Tim Hall. "Not human." Greg nodded. According to intelligence, this facility held members of a species called the Nari. They were insectoid beings known for their intelligence. The hegemony had enslaved them centuries ago. "Activate the disruptor," Greg ordered. Tim turned on the device Dr. Wong had created. It sent out a pulse that disrupted the hegemony's control signals. The door ahead slid open. Inside, hundreds of the insect-like Nari stood motionless in rows. As the disruptor's effect spread, they began to move, looking around in confusion. One approached Greg. It was taller than a human, with 4 arms and compound eyes. When it spoke, the translator in Greg's helmet converted its clicks and whistles to English. "You have freed us," it said. "Why?" "The hegemony is our enemy too," Greg replied. "They destroyed one of our colonies. We're here to end their rule." The Nari's antennae twitched. "We have been slaves for 500 years. We will help you fight them." Greg smiled. This was happening all across hegemony space now. The slaves were rising up, joining forces with humanity. "We have ships waiting to take you to safety," he told the Nari. "Once there, we can discuss how to fight together." Commander Lisa Stewart watched the battle from her command ship. But this wasn't like the battles of the early war years. This time, human ships fought alongside vessels crewed by 5 different alien species, all former slaves of the hegemony, all now allies of humanity. The target was Epsilon Eridani, a star system containing the hegemony's main shipyards. Taking it would cripple their ability to replace their losses, All ships in position, reported her tactical officer, Jim Nelson. Lisa nodded. Begin the attack. The combined fleet moved forward. Human Nova cannons fired alongside Nari energy weapons and Brel missile swarms. The hegemony defenses, strong as they were, couldn't withstand the onslaught from so many directions. Their outer defense line is breaking, Jim said after an hour of fighting. Push through, Lisa ordered. All ships focus fire on their main shipyard stations. The battle raged for 10 more hours. Ships were lost on both sides. But the outcome was never in doubt. The Allies had too many ships, too much firepower. When it was over, Lisa stood on the observation deck, watching the hegemony shipyards burn. Beside her stood representatives of each Allied species. This is a great victory, said Krell, the Nari commander. But the hegemony homeworld still stands. Lisa nodded. Not for long. Earth has been building a special fleet just for that final battle. 700,000 ships, one for every human lost at New Eden. She looked at her new allies. Will you join us for the final push? They all agreed. The hegemony had ruled, through fear for thousands of years. Now it would end, not just by human hands, but by the united strength of all its former victims. Together, Lisa said, we will bring freedom to this part of the galaxy. One colony fell. Then humanity sent 700,000 battleships for vengeance. 20 years had passed since New Eden fell. The war against the hegemony was nearing its end. Humanity and its allies had pushed the enemy back to their home system. Now it was time for the final battle. Admiral John Davis stood on the bridge of the flagship Avenger. Around his ship floated the largest fleet ever gathered in the history of the galaxy. 700,000 human warships, plus 50,000. More from allied species. The ships filled space as far as the eye could see. All fleets report ready, Admiral, said his communications officer, Diane Ward. John nodded. This day had been 20 years in the making. The day humanity would finally have justice for New Eden. Begin the jump sequence, he ordered. All ships to Hegemony Prime. The massive fleet vanished from normal space, jumping through faster than light. Travel toward the enemy homeworld. The journey took 30 minutes. When they arrived, sensors immediately detected the enemy's defenses. They've gathered everything they have left, reported Tactical Officer Peter Lee. 10,000 ships around their homeworld. Orbital defense platforms, planetary shields. John studied the display. The hegemony had prepared well for this final stand. But it wasn't enough. Not against what humanity had brought. Open a channel to all ships, he said. Human and allied. When the channel was open, John spoke from his heart. 20 years ago, the hegemony destroyed the human colony of New Eden. They killed 300,000 innocent people without warning or mercy. They thought we were weak. They thought we would cower in fear. He paused, looking at the enemy homeworld on the main screen. Instead, we built this fleet, ship by ship. Year by year, we freed their slaves and turned their victims into allies. Today we end their empire forever. John closed the channel and turned to his officers. Battle Plan Alpha. Begin the attack. The human fleet split into 5 massive groups, approaching the hegemony defenses from different directions. The allied ships formed a 6th group. Together they surrounded the enemy homeworld. The hegemony fired first. Energy beams and missiles shot from their ships and defense platforms. Some human ships were hit, some were destroyed, but there were always more to take their place. Return fire, John ordered. All weapons. 700,000 ships fired, at once. The darkness of space lit up with the light of countless weapons. The hegemony's outer defense line broke within minutes. Their ships exploded or fled toward the planet. Their planetary shields are holding, Peter reported. Deploy the shield breakers, John said. Special ships moved forward. They carried devices designed by Dr. Wong specifically to take down the hegemony's most powerful shields. The ships positioned themselves around the planet and activated the devices. Energy pulses shot toward the planet. Where they hit the shields, cracks appeared, then more. Finally, the shields collapsed completely. All ships target their government center, John ordered. Precision strikes only. We want their leaders alive if possible. The fleet fired again, this time at specific targets on the planet's surface. Buildings exploded. Defense systems fell silent. The remaining hegemony ships tried to protect their leaders, but they were quickly destroyed. 3 hours after the battle began, it was over. The hegemony forces were defeated. Their leaders were surrounded in their underground bunker. "They're surrendering, Admiral," Diane said. "Their High Council is asking for terms." John's face was grim. "Tell them the only term is unconditional surrender. They face trial for their crimes." Landing ships descended to the planet's surface. Special forces secured the hegemony leaders, 12 alien beings who had ruled their empire for thousands of years. They were brought to the Avenger under heavy guard. John met them in the ship's conference room. The hegemony leaders were tall, blue-skinned creatures with multiple eyes. They looked at him with hatred. "Why?" John asked them. "Why did you destroy New Eden?" The leader spoke, its voice translated by a computer. "You were expanding too quickly, getting too close to our territory. We have eliminated potential threats that way for 10,000 years. John shook his head. "You could have contacted us, talked to us, made peace with us." "Peace is weakness," the leader said. "Or it was, until you proved otherwise." John turned, away in disgust. "Take them to Earth for trial. Let all the species they enslaved see justice done." 1 month later, President Richard Martinez addressed representatives from 27 different species. They had gathered on a space station orbiting Earth to sign the new Galactic Concord. "From humanity's darkest hour has come a new beginning," Richard said. "The hegemony is no more. Their empire is dissolved. Their enslaved worlds are free." He looked around at the alien representatives. Some looked like insects, others like reptiles. Some were forms of life humans had never imagined before, but all had suffered under the hegemony. All had fought alongside humanity for freedom. "We do not seek to replace the hegemony as rulers of this region of space," Richard continued. "Each species will govern its own worlds. The Concord will be a place where we can work together as equals." The signing began. Each representative put their mark on the document, establishing peace between their peoples. When it was done, Richard had one more announcement. Humanity's great fleet, built for war, will now be turned to peaceful purposes. Many ships will be converted to exploration vessels. Others will help rebuild worlds damaged by the hegemony. The age of vengeance is over. The age of cooperation begins. On a small station orbiting where New Eden once stood, Lieutenant Betty Howard led the final memorial service. The station was shaped like a giant ring, with a garden inside. In the center of the garden stood a monument with the names of all who had died when the colony fell. Betty's grandmother had been one of them. She had never known her, but she had grown up hearing stories about New Eden and the war that followed its destruction. As the memorial ended, Betty watched the ships departing from the station. Some were headed to Earth, others to new colonies, or to alien worlds for trade and diplomacy. "We came seeking vengeance," she said softly. "We leave having found something more valuable. A new future among the stars." She looked one last time at the monument, then turned toward her own ship. It was time to go. New Eden would always be remembered, but humanity had finally moved beyond vengeance. As Betty's ship pulled away, the monument continued its silent vigil, a reminder of what was lost and what was gained in the long journey that followed. 1. Colony had fallen, but in its place, a new era for all species had begun.